right, welcome back to Weekly Chat with Crime Stoppers. I'm Nicole Kristoff, Deputy Director of Crime Stoppers, joined today by my trusty friend,
Sidekick Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services and Victim Advocacy.
And today we have our first guest, Keith Houston.
That shows you how good we are when we're starting to attract major talent
Exactly.
from the District Attorney's Office.
There you have it. So tell us, Keith, what do you do with the DA's office? What's your focus?
My focus is financial cybercrime. I focus on romance scams, invoice substitution scams, basically crimes committed over the internet or using a computer.
The elder scams, the romance scam is one that I talk about when I do my community presentations on identity theft and elder fraud. And it's very frustrating because the victims often do not report what's happened to them.
No, and that's unfortunate because, a lot of times this is, it's an embarrassing situation. If you meet somebody online, fall in love, send them a lot of money, and then realize it's a scam.
Right.
So I understand that, but these scammers are using that to perpetrate these crimes. If you don't report them, then it's harder for them to catch them. The good thing is that most of the times when we catch somebody, we'll go back through the perpetrator's bank accounts and try and track down victims. About half the time they're cooperative, about half the time they're not.
What's a standard MO for them? Just an regular case. How does it work?
Typically, these guys will, guys or girls, we've seen it both ways, will set up a profile on like Match.com, we've seen BlackPeople.com, seen FarmersOnly.com. Pretty much any, if you're lonely and on the internet, it's a very bad thing.
Very bad.
Very bad. Don't send money to anybody. But they'll target people, and they will work these people for months. It's not just like, oh, I met you, will you send me money? It's like, oh, I'll send you flowers. Oh, I'll send you poetry. Typically, the poetry is cut and pasted off poetry websites. I found that several times, but these people are not, they're not.
It's kind of like grooming like a sex offender, how they groom.
It's exactly the same way.
Process.
It's all a process.
Wow. How many victims do you think on average we would normally see in our area?
It's hard to say because most of these cases involve players from outside the country. Okay. A lot of the scammers are outside the country. And so they target people nationwide.
Okay.
We see a lot of these cases here in Houston because they tend to recruit, there's a big problem with the West African immigrant community where they're being recruited to open up bank accounts to receive illicit funds from these scams. And so in Houston, there's probably thousands of victims here in Houston.
Right.
But what's the actual criminal charge that they actually do get charged with?
Most of the time they get charged with money laundering. It depends on where they're at in the chain. Unfortunately, it's hard for us to get the actual scammers themselves because usually they are overseas. Occasionally we do get some that are here in the U.S. We do have some that are currently have pending cases that we believe we're doing scams out of Houston. They're scamming people in Houston, in Atlanta, and in other parts of the country.
So basically, social media has just opened up a whole new world.
Social media and email have changed things, but it's not really anything different than, if you're more mature like myself, you might remember chain letters.
I do remember those.
And,
I do.
It's basically.
Andy's too young.
Yeah.
But it's basically the same scams, just modified for our times.
Electronic. That's amazing. I was reading somewhere that the losses range in the $9 billion cap, but really, I was talking with somebody and they're like, well, the bank's going to give the person back their money, so really the bank's the only one out the money, but really it's trickled down, isn't it?
Well, in most cases, the bank is out nothing. In most cases, it's the complainant that's out all the money because typically the complainant has willingly sent this money because they've been tricked.
Right.
It's not anything that the bank has done, and so the bank is not liable for it. And so that's a mistruth.
Gotcha.
The banks are not the ones that are suffering on this. It's the people that are suffering on this.
And they have no recourse, no one to go back to and say, I've lost money through a fraudulent credit card purchase on my, or transaction on my card. They willingly gave money to somebody that was perpetrating fraud against them.
That's exactly it. Because like, I can give you an example. I had my credit card compromised about a year ago where somebody made some PayPal transactions. And I called PayPal, and they gave me a hem-ha. So I called my bank, and my bank just immediately backed it all off because it wasn't an authorized charge.
Right.
But that's the problem, is that if you authorize the charge, even if you catch it pretty quickly, sometimes the banks will run these transactions through very quickly.
Right.
In a perfect world, we'd like a 72-hour waiting period on these transactions. But unfortunately, in the world of business, 72 hours is a long time.
It is.
What's always troubled me is how we classify these types of offenses. And I've been in criminal justice for way far too long than even want to admit. All of these are classified as non-violent crimes, mainly because I didn't use a weapon. And really the weapon is someone on a computer, or someone using a pen, or someone who's an accountant in an office that's been pilfering, companies and so forth by fraudulently obtaining money. But we don't classify them with the same type of urgency that we do with violent offenders. And I'm sure that's got to affect you and everyone else.
No, that's true. I mean, when I kind of got into this in a backward way, in the previous administration, I had asked to go to some computer classes, and they let me go to them with the idea that I could possibly start prosecuting these crimes. When the new administration came in, they specifically tapped me to do this, but I'm just one person, and I estimate I'm getting 10 to 15% of what's actually going on in Houston, just a small percentage. But like you said, it's a nonviolent crime. The sad thing is that lives are drastically changed because of these things. I mean, we've had people that have given up their life savings and end up on the street, and it's just a sad situation. And it's just been,
we hear about like the Bernie Madoffs of the world, because it was so high profile and because so many high profile people were affected. But the average Joe that basically has their life forever altered and depleted, are there any repercussions for them? If someone is convicted, can they at least get restitution in theory?
In theory, a lot of the cases I have the people that are probably more on the less culpable side because they're the ones that are opening the bank accounts. They're not the actual hackers.
Gotcha.
And so we kind of rank them into different hierarchies. The ones that are opening the bank accounts and receiving the money, we typically hold them responsible for whatever restitution whatever money they received. They typically receive anywhere from 10 to 20% of the transactions, and we'll order that as restitution as part of their plea agreement. The mid-level people, the people that are recruiting them, we'll go after them hardcore and try and get prison time on them. We can order restitution, but like you said, it's kind of, most of the time the money is gone and we can't find it. Last year I was able to get about $250,000 in restitution ordered from the court. And this year we've already passed that amount. In 3 months, we've managed to pass that amount already. But that's just a small portion of what's actually being done. I mean, like I said, I think, my caseload right now ranges from $40 to $50 million in fraud.
Do other counties have the same level of prosecutors as you? Are we unique here in Harris County because we have such a dynamic person to prosecute these cases?
I think we are unique. I think I am the only person that's concentrated solely on these types of crimes. I think other counties, and even Harris County, other prosecutors do prosecute these types of crimes, but I'm the one that's solely looking
That's
at
your
them.
focus.
That's my focus right now.
See, another good
Yes,
reason to
because-
live here.
True. How can Crime Stoppers help you?
Good question.
That's a good question. There's a couple of things that people in general just need to know. If if you're contacted by somebody on the internet and it's something about money, talk to somebody. Talk to anybody.
Right.
Don't let them get you in a bubble and say, you have to, because one of the key things that these con men do is they want to make it a pressure. It's all about right now. You have to do it right now.
Urgent.
It's like the IRS calls.
Oh, gosh.
I've had some of those cases where, the IRS is on the phone, they're gonna arrest me. It's like, I've worked with the IRS, I guarantee they are not gonna call you if you have a warrant.
No.
They're gonna come and arrest you.
Right.
It's the same with most law enforcement agencies, unless they're working out unless it's something that they know you already know, they're just gonna come get you. They're not gonna give you a courtesy call and give you the opportunity
By
to
the way,
run.
we're coming to get you in about 5 minutes,
Yeah.
so just be ready.
Yeah.
Pack a bag.
Have a bags packed and
Pack a toothbrush.
bring your ID.
Exactly. I got one of those IRS scam calls not too long ago, and I played along. Oh my God, I'm so afraid. And they wanted to stay on the phone with me while I drove to a CVS or a Walgreens to pay my tax debt and an iTunes gift card.
And that's it. Is that unfortunately people have done that.
So how do they get the money from these unsuspecting victims? Is it through like an old-fashioned check, money orders, wire transfers?
Typically, in the case of like romance scams, it's typically just direct wire transfers or MoneyGrams, Western Union. And like the IRS scams or some of the other scams, it's just a matter of using iTunes cards that they'll convert to cash. We also have cases where, say you're selling a sofa on Craigslist for $500, and I send you a check for $2,700, and I say, oops, I sent you the wrong check, and you send me the $2,200 check back. In reality, the $2,700 check is a forged.
Right.
So you're out the whole money, the whole amount of money. There's pretty much any way you can think of sending money, people do it. Another thing that people should be concerned about is if anybody asks you to open a bank account for somebody else.
Right.
You wouldn't carry luggage through the airport for somebody else, hopefully.
Hopefully not. Hopefully
So
not.
you shouldn't probably open up a bank account for somebody else. And there's two reasons why not to. One, with all the ways to send money, if somebody wants you to open up a bank account for them, it's probably for an illegal reason. Two, if you do open a bank account for somebody else and act as their banker, you've already committed a felony because you're not a banker and you're not licensed. And so you've already committed a third-degree felony. You've already violated what's called the Money Services Act.
So that person technically is a victim and a co-conspirator.
Yes.
And they probably don't even realize it. When you're purchasing guns, it's called a straw purchase, and it's illegal to do that. Is it illegal for, if Andy says, hey, I got $5, go open a bank account for me, Nicole, we're good friends.
You should. The only people you should open bank accounts for are if you're like a guardian of a parent or a child.
Okay.
Alright. Those cases, obviously, if there's some legal attachment or if you have a business. But in most of these cases, the conspirators will ask people to, hey, go to the Harris County Clerk's office, you get a DBA in this name, and then open up a bank account in this name. And then...
That's a lot of work.
It is, but we'll send you money and you can keep 10%. You get $150,000 deposit in your account and you get to keep $15,000 of that.
Let me ask you this. What is the punishment ranges for these types of offenses generally range?
Just for the violation of Money Services Act, it's a third-degree felony, which is 2 to 10. 2 years to 10 years in the Texas Department of Corrections. You could get deferred or probation on that if you're, depending on your circumstances. But it mostly depends upon the value of the money. The highest ones are typically over $300,000. Those are first degrees, so it's 5 years to 99 years. The people that are the recruiters, typically we charge them with engaging in organized criminal activity.
Okay.
And that's 15 to 99. We had a guy recently in December that was one of these recruiter type guys that pled to 15 years.
Wow. And we're not talking Martha Stewart prison, we're talking big boy prison.
Yes.
It's not club fed.
Exactly,
Wow.
exactly. So it's not 15 years in an easy situation.
And
We're
if you're
talking,
getting 15 years for engaging in organized crime due to the statutes, you have to serve half of that before you're eligible for release these days.
so it's not as easy of a cakewalk as they might think that it is. that's awful. We were trying to focus on some fugitives for you, and we heard one of them's already been arrested.
Yes, gentleman was picked up this morning. The FBI had been looking for a while. Since the case is pending, I won't get into too much detail on it, but they've been looking for him for about 10 months, and he was picked up this morning.
That's awesome.
And
we don't know if it was a Crime Stoppers tip yet or not, but we will do our
we
research.
appreciate him being
Yeah,
picked up right before
exactly.
we were doing this show.
Yeah, it kind of
Great
works out
timing.
nice for
Yes,
us.
so.
We
It
can
did.
always say we had a hand in it, but it's how often do you see arrests? I mean, that's the question that I'm wondering is it's hard as it is to find these people.
most of
or
the
it
time,
seems.
the biggest problem we have is just is getting complainants to come forward.
Right.
Once a complainant comes forward, we will start our investigation. And typically, depending on which agency it is, we have the FBI, the U.S. Postal Inspectors, Houston Police Department are the three primary
Okay.
agencies working with me. Harris County, Baytown Police, all the other agencies are also working with us, but just on a case-by-case basis.
So some of these crimes could actually be prosecuted as a federal, not just a local.
Yes, most of these cases could be prosecuted as federal. A lot of them are being prosecuted at the state level because of resources.
Okay.
We are working with the U.S. Attorney's Office and with the FBI. Last May, they had what was called Operation Wire, which was a nationwide sting in which approximately 80 people were arrested nationwide. 15 of them were here in Houston, and all of those were my cases. They were all with the District Attorney's Office.
So that's about
Keith
20%
stays busy.
over there.
Very, very busy guy. We're very, very lucky to have you. We also are very fortunate. We kind of teased last week that we have a blog post from you that has some more information on these types of scams and things like that. So we're real excited to partner with you and appreciate you being our very first guest.
Thank
I
you so
think
much.
this issue is so important because these people
Extremely.
wreck so many lives
Yeah.
in so many ways that you really don't realize.
And it's every walk of life. It's my grandmother, my next door neighbor, my mom, my friends. It's amazing to me how many people, once you become a friend of someone online, how quickly you'd be willing to give them money. Whereas if I said, "Hey, do you have $5? Can I have $5, Keith?" He's not going to give me money. But if I met you online and you romanced me or you groomed me for a period of time, I'll send you my life savings.
If someone thinks they've been scammed, what's the first thing they need to do?
Good question.
The first thing you should do, even if you don't necessarily want to report this to the police, is go to Google ic3.gov. It's the Internet Complaint Center. Go in there and fill out a report. Those reports will go to the FBI office here in Houston, and they will prioritize them, based on amounts, based on, if it's somebody, obviously if we see the same name pop up as a
Right.
defendant, then we concentrate on those things. Because unfortunately, they get thousands of those reports a day, but if you report the information, there's a good chance that we'll be able to use it later, and I can give a specific example on that. We picked up a guy that we had for one invoice replacement scheme where an email had been sent, fraudulent email. They had replaced the W in escrow with 2 lowercase v's.
Okay.
And so if you just look at the email, it
Very
looks
clever.
looks very
Right.
close to the same. And that's how a lot of these email spoofs are done, is just
Right.
substitutions like that. Well, they substituted this invoice, and he got like 150,000 or something like that, which would be a first-degree felony, or no, I'm sorry, a third-degree felony, because it was just under 150. But we go looking through his bank accounts, and we found other things, and so we started pulling IC3 reports involving his bank accounts, and we were able to find out approximately 1,700 people that had been victimized.
Wow.
But it was
Just
because,
by one person.
just because of one person, because these people kept reporting them.
Right.
Most of them were small amounts. They were only, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. But when we got him on the big amount, we were able to go back and find all these others,
Right.
which showed that, his initial thing was like, oh, I was scammed. It's like, no, you weren't. You were, you did all this.
You were doing the scamming.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Well, we thank you so much for joining us and contributing to our blog. We really appreciate you being here. And come back and see us again next week. Check us out online. You can find Keith's blog post, and we'll also share some other information about how to report these types of crimes.
And we also have sections for wanted and unsolved financial crimes, credit card and fraud.
Yep. Thanks a lot.